Okay, so today we're doing our office hours, mainly talking about readmes and our markdown language. Before we get into that, I had a quick question, or I just want to talk overall what the review will look like. So review comprises of two main components, your non-technical PowerPoint presentation, as well as presenting your code in your notebook. For that presentation, if you can make it this time next week, Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern, you will do your presentation then, and I'll be taking notes during that time. But if you cannot make that, we will begin your project review with the presentation. So it's always presentation first, and then code review. So code review, which you will schedule a project review with me, and off of my one-on-one link, it will be the mod project review. So those will actually be 45 minutes long, a little bit longer. If you've already done your presentation, or if you're planning to do your presentation during this time, you actually scheduling 30 minutes is okay. So yeah, it's okay to schedule 30 minutes because usually the extra 15 minutes is for the presentation. What that non-presentation review will look like is just you walking through your code. Which is why your notebooks have to be pretty organized. And that's something I'm going to talk about today as well. So your notebooks have to be pretty organized such that you can follow your notebook and talk to me about what you did, how you arrived at your conclusion, your thought processes. Usually you don't have to go super in depth, like talk about every single line, but talk about like overall processes. Like for example, like this is my cleaning. I mainly dropped null values, mainly imputed with median, so on and so forth. And then this is my resulting. You can talk about joins very broadly, and in creating your visualizations, just did that maybe something along the lines of, I wanted to see the relationship between A and B, therefore I thought a scatter plot would make the most sense. And if I need to prod for more questions, I will. So that's what the review is going to look like. Questions about that? It's usually pretty chill, and you will get used to these reviews as you know, with upcoming projects as well.
Will you or the people that we present to, will you guys ask questions like pertaining to the project? Like, you know, are you guys Microsoft?
Yeah, so when you're preparing the non-technical presentation, your audience is Microsoft, yes. I will give space for questions, just in case anyone is curious about like, oh, how did you do that specific thing? The idea is not for you all to interrogate each other, so don't do that. But it's just like, if you have questions, if you're interested in like, oh, how did you, I don't know, how did you create this graph? Or like, what was your thought process behind like measuring these measures? Or like, oh, how did you think of this idea? More of those kinds of like friendly questions for sure. We're not here to interrogate each other. And I will not interrogate you as well. In your code review, remember that I don't expect you all to be movie experts. It's more about, can you get from numbers to insight? That's the main thing I'm going to be looking for.
And how many people are we presenting to?
Just each other. There might be a few more people because another cohort is getting their project introduced that morning, actually. I have another cohort that's getting this project introduced to them that morning. So I plan on inviting or sending them the Zoom link to your presentations. They will not have started on the project. So it's just for them to get a sense of what the project is going to look like. They will return the favor because they are a full-time cohort. They're going to return the favor later on. And so you will get to go to their presentations because their pace is a little bit faster. So yeah, I usually do that for my cohorts, take turns attending each other's presentations.
Okay.
Yeah, so no pressure. It's not going to be other instructors. Your review will only be with me. So don't worry about that either. So yeah. Any other questions on the review? Happy to talk more about that tomorrow or like answer questions on Slack as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Cool. Well, if there's nothing else, let's talk about readmes. So one of the deliverables for this project is a readme. And actually, this is going to be a deliverable for all your projects. So a readme is we've actually seen readmes. A readme is basically whatever renders on this front page on GitHub. Now, this is extremely important because when you're putting your GitHub links on your portfolio in the future, and when someone clicks onto your GitHub link for your project, the README is the first thing they're going to see. So it's very important that this README is done. I will say when putting together a README, it's very, very subjective, but throughout all the different ways you can do this, the one thing that I think you should really emphasize is clarity. Your README should be as clear as possible. I will say like something like this is nice where you have like, you're utilizing bullet points, bolding your text, headers, and I'll talk more about formatting in a little bit. Anything that makes it easier for someone to read about your project, the better. I'll reiterate this over and over again in the future, but I had spoken to a technical recruiter once, and he admitted that for every project, on average, he only spends 15 seconds looking at a README. And in those 15 seconds is when he decides, okay, is this worth looking into or not? So very important that you make it very clear. So you know that, maybe if you want to highlight your best parts of your project, you do that here. In terms of content, a README summarizes your project. I'm going to show you one example in a little bit, but a README should summarize your project. A lot of the times it's very, very similar to the information that's going to be in your non-technical presentation. Although you can be a little bit more technical in a README because usually people who are going into your GitHub tend to be a little bit more technical anyways. So if you want to like get even more in-depth into explaining some code here, you can do that. What you shouldn't do, I don't want to see like copy and pasted code explaining comments, all of that. But as you can see, README should look clean, should look clear. I've actually also linked a few different examples of what READMEs can look like, many, many different examples here. So these are all different. So this is from like 2018, 2019. So this is just one example. You have all your different graphs here. Let's just see another one. Another example here. This one's a little more wordy. And again, this is subjective. So yeah, some examples for you to look through. So in creating these READMEs, when you created your GitHub repo, automatically you should have initialized it with a README. If you didn't, that's fine. You can actually just create a README file in your terminal, or literally create I'll show you how to do that in Jupyter Notebook in a little bit. But you automatically have created a README. So you should have some README file in your repository already. And what you have to do is just go in and edit that. So I want to talk about syntax first. There's this markdown cheat sheet that I found super, super helpful. Basically shows you all the formatting syntax for READMEs. So as an example, it shows you like different headers. If you want to do different headers, you just add like the number of pound signs in front of it. And so the biggest one is H1 to H6. Other really useful ones are like bullet points. So you can have bullet points like this. They have some documentation here. I pretty much always just do like the star or the dash for bullet points. If you ever wanted to hyperlink anything, you can do that. Hyperlinking is pretty useful as well. If you want to like hyperlink to your notebook, you can do that from your README. Images, this one's going to be important because this is a visualization project. So if you want to do your images, this is the syntax here. You can put code blocks. Probably you don't want to do code blocks unless you're referencing specific like file names or variables. Then you want to make it look like this kind of formatting, with like this gray highlight looking thing, or have like a code block like this and it can come up like this. But I would say this you probably do not want to use. You can make tables. If anyone has like table format results, you can do that like this. But yeah, I would say this README stuff, you will get used to the syntax of README. How you actually edit it, there's a few ways to do so. So let me show you first the Jupyter Notebook way. So Jupyter Notebook, if I launch Jupyter Notebook, and I'm just launching a project right now. Okay, this is just one of my projects, not very important what it is. If you see your README file, you can actually just click into it and edit it from here. Downside is you don't really see how it renders, but this would be the easiest way to do it. If you don't have a README file yet, you just have to do new text file. And if you change the file name to read, it's actually not case sensitive, I think. If you just do readme.md, oh, okay, well, that already exists, but readme1.md, you should not have the one there. It automatically reads like the markdown syntax. So if you don't have a README file yet, this is how you do that. So let me just delete this because I don't want this in my repo. That's one way to do it. Another way is if you have a text editor. And I think that this is a good opportunity to start trying some text editor. Let me reshare my screen real quick. New share. All right. So my text editor of choice is Atom, A-T-O-M, Atom. I like Atom because it's the most no frills one. It also has the least functionality for fancy things, but I get distracted by a lot of things. So I like Atom. So you can also choose to do your README through some text editor. Other ones that are pretty popular, VS Code is one, PyCharm is one as well. Feel free to just like Google, look something up. There's something that allows you to edit code. It's basically like word processing for code. Anything like that of that sort will work. I like Atom because Atom gives you this preview. If I do like Control-Shift-M, this panel comes up on the side. So I can actually like edit this and it like real-time updates as well. So yeah, I do think that having this side by side just makes it easier to format. I don't have to like push to GitHub and refresh and make sure that everything works. So you can see here, I've just put some like images of my graphs. This is one of my other projects. We haven't learned this yet. I just put my graphs like this. I also hyperlinked where I got my data. Yeah, nothing else. Had some like bullet points and results bolded, stuff like that. So this is how you create a README. Any questions so far? Awesome. So something else that makes use of markdown formatting is the cells in your Jupyter notebook. So let me just reshare my screen again. Okay, I don't remember what this project looks like, so we'll find out. The whole idea is, okay, this is not a good example. Let me go to a different one. Okay, so as Nelson was saying before the recording started, table of contents, very, very helpful. Mine is not a great example, but I do think it's extremely important. And I think one of the points in the rubric is, I forgot what it's called, but it's how you format your notebook and how clear your code is. I would say make use of your markdown cells as much as possible. So these cells, and to do markdown, by the way, if you create a new cell, to turn it into a markdown cell, if it's blue, press the letter M, that turns it into markdown. Y brings it back to code, or you can just choose it from here. But any markdown cell will take any markdown syntax. All of these will work. So make use of this. If you're explaining your business case, maybe even have like a business case cell at the very top, talking about your business case so that your entire notebook has a nice, clean narrative. I think that has made it very, very helpful for me going through a lot of students' projects. Make use of headers, sections, even have like a conclusion section at the bottom. This is a really bad example of mine. This was done like 2 years ago. But yeah, have like a conclusion section, maybe summarize your findings, make it as clear as possible. Imagine that this is like, this notebook itself should function as a standalone product for someone like me or someone who's reviewing your code in the future to be able to read and fully understand without having to click back to your like presentation or click back through your README to figure out what's really going on. So use markdown cells in your notebook. That's going to be very, very helpful to keep organized. Let's see. Kind of on that note, comment your code. Code commenting is extremely, extremely important. You do not have to comment every single line, but if you're doing some sort of process at some point, you should at least say what it is that you're doing. So commenting and making use of markdown cells should come hand in hand to guide someone through your entire notebook. Of course, this comes with practice, so I don't expect everything to be like perfectly documented at this point, but do get into the habit of commenting your code, get into the habit of documenting your thought processes, especially in a project like this one where you're trying to convince someone to use your ideas or use your insights to make decisions and what movies to make. Explaining why you're deciding to subset your data frame a certain way can be very valuable information. A lot of times when students are walking through their code with me during my review, I'll say, hey, that was a really, really good point that you said as you're explaining this code. You should put that in your notebook, because it would be such a pity if someone's walking through your notebook and completely glosses over the fact that you made that decision. And being a good data scientist is about making good decisions during your process. So do your best to document processes. Usually when students are walking through their code and there's something that I see or hear that isn't documented, I make a note of it so that you can throw that in there. So yeah. In summary, make use of markdown cells. That will make your notebook very, very nice and pretty. In terms of notebooks too, feel free to also have multiple notebooks. There's nothing wrong with doing that. If you have like a scratchwork notebook, which is what I usually do, you can have a scratchwork notebook and then have another notebook that looks nice. If you feel like you're using two completely disjoint data sets, feel free to do it in two different notebooks. I don't mind. Some people have done this where they have like one notebook for cleaning and then one notebook for all the visualizations. If that works for you, sure. So yeah, you're not constrained to just one notebook. Although I think with the table of contents with the notebook extension, that does make it easier to work on one notebook, and it does save people from having to open multiple. Cool. With regards to that, any questions?
Can you make different Jupyter notebooks read off of each other? Like I guess import one notebook's
functions and stuff.
Yeah.
There is a way to do that. I don't recommend it though. Okay. I will say that if you have like a bunch of functions that you have defined that you want to use across different notebooks, a better way to do it, which I'm now considering whether I want to talk about that now or not. Okay, yeah, we do have a little bit of time anyways. Okay, if you really want to reuse functions across multiple notebooks, this is the best way to do it. Create a Python file, and I will get back into this for the next project, but this is called scripting. So create a new file, a text file, and call it something like functions.py, functions.py. Throw all your functions into this Python file. So for example, I can even define like, I'm just going to do it function one, give it text, and then return, I say, I don't know, text. All right, yeah, that'll be my function. So if you have this function file with, you can have a bunch of different functions here. Remember that whatever libraries you use for your functions, you also have to import here. But create this file. And from here, you'll actually be able to import your functions in a different notebook. So let me just create a brand new notebook so I don't mess up my own project. So what you will do is you can actually import functions. Import functions, you don't have to do the .py, but you import functions, and then what do I call this? Function one. And I'll be able to use my function. So I'll do like function one, and I had it text, hello, damn. Function one. Okay, another way to do it is you can do from functions, import function one. Oh, I know why that didn't work. That didn't work because you have to do functions dot function one, hello. Cool, yeah. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it, so let me just keep this there, import functions. So to use, if you import it this way, you have to do functions dot function one, same as doing like pd dot data frame. That's why you got to do that. Or if you want to use a specific function, you can do from functions import function one. And then you can use function one hi. So you can do something like that. Or you can also import functions as f. And so instead you can just do f.function1. Hello. So that's how you can use functions across different notebooks. This is the correct way to do this. Having all of your function in like a different Python file. I will talk about this again for the next project. So if all of this just went over your heads, don't worry about this at all. But if you're doing multiple notebooks and you want to use the same function, rather than copying the function over from one notebook and just doing the same thing in another notebook, this is a much better way of doing it. But if this doesn't work for you, feel free to send me some Slack messages, but don't worry, this is not like a big deal or anything.
Thank you. But you wouldn't recommend this for this particular project, right?
I mean, if you are really going to do multiple notebooks, this is the best way to do it. It's not necessary for this project. Like if you don't want to bother figuring this stuff out, just copy and paste your functions. I think that'll be better.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Glad we got to somewhat get a preview into this for now. Yeah, any other questions?
Yeah, so we can use multiple notebooks, like, so one can be strictly our code and what we sort of our analysis, and then like the other notebook can be like our visualizations. Is that appropriate?
Yeah, if you want, you can do that. So what some students have done is like you do all your data cleaning and you do like your like you even export your two CSVs, like your cleaned data, open in a new notebook, and then just make your visualizations off of the clean CSVs. That's something that you can do as well. Yeah.
Okay.
But your visualizations will have code too. So it's not there will still be code. It's just you don't have to deal with running all of like that cleaning stuff again.
Okay, so it will transfer, like if we, I mean, is it gonna like transfer, can I transfer over like the cleaned CSV?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have a
Okay.
clean CSV file, let me see if I can use an example here. Oh, I don't know why I used this format to do it that time, but okay, let's just say I have data df equals to p.read CSV. I wonder, I haven't seen this project in a while, but okay. Import our pandas and then import this. So let's just say I have df being this. Cool, don't remember what this is, but okay. And let's say df, I make some changes. I'm gonna do df equals to df dot. Let's just say that this is going to be my cleaned data. My clean data is now df with 100 rows. So if this is my clean data, I can actually do two CSV, give it a file name. So cleaned data.csv. And I run this. And if I look back into my home, it's just created this new CSV. So this clean CSV, I can actually go into my new notebook, I need to import pandas first, pandas as pd. And then I can do pd.read CSV, cleaned data, and that will be there. So you can do that as well. Oh, one also thing, the reason why this came up is because you actually want to make sure that index equals to false. If I do that, and then let me rerun this here, that's all clean.
Okay.
Yeah, if anyone is if anyone's running into any issues with like working across multiple notebooks, let me know.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions on anything I spoke about today? If not, I can stop the recording here. Sweet.